Hello gamers, today we're going to be entertaining a hypothetical, because even though I'm going to be busy as fuck for the rest of the day, I want to record something because I just want to take my mind off of how busy I'm going to be. And what better way than to theory on about something that literally no one is autistic enough to care about except for myself. So I just started wondering, because I got bored during my break at work yesterday. Fuck my job, by the way. I hate my job. I'm so glad I'm getting a new job next week. Thank fuck. I can't take enough of that fucking dog shit. Alright, enough of me complaining about life. Life's been fucking chaos lately. I just wanna fucking relax. And what a good way to relax than just be autistic for an hour. I only have an hour to record this, so let's try to make this quick. So this is the theoremon on what DPP SU would look like if it was VR based instead, viability rankings based instead of usage based. With usage, let me look up ZU. I guess ZU old gens works. I need to find the big thread, right? With all the so instead of using usage stats to determine what our list of legal Pokemon is, we will instead be using the ZU viability rankings instead of their usage stats. And the viability rankings and the usage stats can sometimes be different, right? What players perceive as good can sometimes be different than what players actually end up using. I think my favorite example of this would be something like Wormasand. Wormasand is very hard to fit on a team in ZU because Wormatrash exists and they obviously can't be on the same team, right? But Wormasand is still ranked within ZU viability ranking wise due to the fact that it checks Luxray super well, and Luxray is the best Pokemon in the tier by far. So as a result, even though Wormasand is just a pretty good Pokemon in DPP SU, nothing crazy though. It would be rising in this hypothetical because it has honestly an arguably more important niche in ZU than it has in SU, which I think is hilarious. Just goes to show how ridiculous Luxray is. And that just goes to follow for basically every Pokemon that I'm rising. Combuskin is a placeholder image for Flareon, by the way, because I'm using a really old 2023, almost 2 years ago now, Jesus Christ, template, because this template includes all the shitmons, right, that we don't typically consider, but we probably will have to start considering in a world where we lose so many top-tier Pokemon, and Wormasand. And then Shedinja is a placeholder image for Ghastly as well. So in this hypothetical, we would be rising Bronzor, Exploud, Flareon, Ghastly, Huntail, Kecleon, Lopunny, Marshtomp, Sudowoodo, and Wormasand. So yeah, that is I can't do basic counting. Let me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that is 10 whole Pokemon rising, aka about a third of the legal SU list. Which means that this meta is going to be looking pretty damn different. We'll be getting a lot of rises in this hypothetical. I guess starting with Bronzor and by extension Sudowoodo is a very good one. So Sudowoodo has risen to ZU before. It ended up dropping back down, and we froze the tier, so Sudowoodo can't rise. None of these Pokemon can rise, by the way, because we froze in DPP SU. And I'm completely on board with freezing DPP SU, because even though ZU is still seeing developments, right? Like Lopunny's getting a lot better in ZU. Even though we're seeing developments, I really don't feel comfortable unfreezing, because it just makes the tiers unstable. And I just want to play a stable version of DPP SU, especially since our current version of DPP SU is a very balanced and very fun metagame. I really don't want it getting tampered with. Anyway, yeah, so Sudowoodo's risen in the past, and pretty much immediately... Oh, by the way, this viability ranking... I'm making this just a viability list for the sake of this video, because it'd be too complicated for me to theoremon exact rankings. Anyway, when that happened, pretty much as soon as pretty much the first thing that happened is when Sudowoodo fell was that Graveler replaced it. Graveler is not as good as Sudowoodo, because Sudowoodo has a better typing and it has better coverage, which means that Graveler would not get the S- spot that Sudowoodo currently has in many of our viability rankings. It would instead be like A or A+ around that range. It would be a very good Pokemon though, and it would be a very, very common option. Graveler gets significantly better with the loss of Sudowoodo and Bronzor. And then, just kind of go on with Bronzor. Bronzor is status immune, Bronzor is immune to Levitate. These are traits that really aren't going to be taken back. With Bronzor gone though, Bastiodon gets noticeably better. Bastiodon rises the tier for sure. Then another fascinating thing that happens as well is that Pupitar, I think Pupitar will get better as well. I think Pupitar will be about on par with Graveler, because Pupitar has better special defense, Pupitar has Dragon Dance for potential sweeping, Pupitar has Shedskin Rest. It has more options than Graveler, even though Graveler has the better raw stats. So I think they'll be about on par with each other in this hypothetical. Another thing to consider is Magnemite. Low-key, I think Magnemite does get a little worse, because it can't spam Thunderbolt as much. Ground types are going to be more viable. Why isn't Vibrava on the... I just realized Vibrava isn't on this list. I'll find a placeholder for Vibrava. It's a mon that is definitely not going to be rising. Fuck it, we're using Combee as our Vibrava. This is fucking whack. Just to pretend that Combee is Vibrava. I feel like Magnemite gets slightly worse in this hypothetical. But by slightly worse, I mean like it's B+ now instead of A-. Because electric types are still quite good. It can just run leftovers instead of choice specs. Maybe switch to speed investments, so that way it isn't completely fucked by these additions. Magnemite would find a way to adapt. It would still be in the tier for sure. And then, of course, the other elephants in the room are Corsola and Magcargo, which both rise for sure. Now, honestly, with Corsola and Magcargo, I don't really know how much they'd rise, because they're still pretty passive, but like, I mean, both Furret and Pidgeot are kind of U-turn spammers. They'd kind of be the new... Oh yeah, in this hypothetical, when Lopunny rises, Pidgeot's going to be easily one of the best Pokemon in the tier. Honestly, I'd say that Lumineon rises to this stage as well, without Lopunny. Because the only thing that really hold back Lumineon and Pidgeot from being absolutely crazy is the fact that Lopunny outspeeds them. Yeah, I'm just trying to retrace my thought process for a second. Yeah, I feel like Corsola and Magcargo, I feel like B+ is B+ish around that area is probably where I'd have them. I feel like they... I also am not quite sure because they're pretty passive. They don't have as unique of a defensive... Actually, they do have a pretty unique defensive role. Corsola isn't weak to water, which is a lot more important than... Because Sudowoodo is weak to water, but I can just run Pasho to deal with that. Graveler can't run Pasho to deal with that. So Corsola not being weak to water is genuinely pretty big. Yeah, Corsola for sure rises then to like B+. I'm honestly not as sold on Magcargo though. Magcargo's Stealth Rock weak, and frankly, I just think that makes it kind of ass. It would be in the tier though, because we'd just kind of be starved for rock type options. then I'm trying to retrace my steps, trying to figure out where should we go next. I guess we can talk about more niche rock types. Cranidos doesn't really change because it's hardly a rock type, honestly. Now that there isn't Allophony that jump kicks on Aeron will actually be pretty decent, I think. Aeron wouldn't be a part of the tier though. It just wouldn't. It's a bit too flawed for that, but yeah, it'll get noticeably better for sure. I guess but now we can look at other rock types. Geodude obviously is... I'm gonna have a tier below you are called Lamau for Pokemon that I'm not even gonna bother considering. Rhyhorn is... Okay, yeah, Rhyhorn has absolutely zero niche when Pupitar exists. I don't know why I was entertaining that for a second. I think our only other rock types are Bonsly and Shieldon, which are obviously both just Nose. Oh, Nose Pass. Trying to think, Nose Pass can trap Bastiodon, I guess, but Bastiodon just roars it, so that's not an interaction that'll actually happen. Nose Pass unironically does kind of have an interesting niche though, because it's a rock type because it's a pure rock type, so it doesn't have any of the 4 times weaknesses that literally all of our other rock types have. It doesn't have reliable recovery though, which is not amazing. Does Nose Pass have, like, decent utility moves, at least? I know it gets rocks, which that'll always be helpful. Oh, Thunder Wave's not bad. I think it's the only rock type that gets Thunder Wave. Let me check that. Yeah, it's the only rock type that gets Thunder Wave. Okay, it would have a niche, for sure. And the current meta, it has absolutely zero niche, because just use Sudowoodo, right? But... in this hypothetical without Sudowoodo, Nose Pass would have some sort of niche. So yeah, that'd be the only rock type that would actually, like, not be unranked in this hypothetical. So now I'm trying to... We discussed what the tier would look like with the rock types. Being rearranged, right, without Sudowoodo or Bronzor's influences. Yeah, so I guess next up would be to talk about Exploud. Exploud is a normal type mid-speed breaker, and there isn't really anything that does its role. Munchlax can do it. Munchlax is just a lot slower, though. The fact that Exploud has a genuinely decent speed tier for its role is part of what makes it better at breaking than Munchlax. But who knows, maybe we can look for Pokemon that... Pokemon? I gotta pronounce it right, god damn it. I mean, Castform maybe? Yeah, Castform looks strictly better than Loudred in terms of raw stats, at least. Castform's not even viable in IU, though. Neither is Loudred. Neither of them would be viable in SU, then. So we can stop entertaining that one. Honestly, I feel like this Lamau tier was a little pointless. I guess we can just use it as, like, an indicator of what Pokemon I've confirmed is just like, yeah, nah. We may as well have that, I guess. Anyway, where's Loudred? I guess in that case, Whismur is... Well, yeah, so... Really, I don't think anything would replace Exploud, which is fine. Munchlax would try to replace it, and it would do an okay job at it. Otherwise, we just use the existing mid-speed breakers, like Meditite and Seviper. Wow, it's just Meditite and Seviper now, because fucking Flareon rises as well in this hypothetical. And when Flareon rises, Quilava becomes better. Is Quilava that much better? Honestly, no, not really. But it does become better. I'm trying to think, like, would Quilava actually be... Could Quilava be SU? Speed tier wise, it's not great. It doesn't really have coverage to hit anything with. And it's basically just Fire Stab, Hidden Power Grass. Hidden Power Grass doesn't really hit the waters especially hard. And there are a lot of walls like Bastiodon that just completely... Yeah, Quilava wouldn't be a part of SU officially, but it would be better without Flareon. I'm trying to think about any other like fire types that are worth considering. I'm just gonna knock out all the fire types where it's like, yeah, nah, you don't got a chance. Where's fucking Growlithe? There we go. Oh shit, I forgot about Seeking for some reason. I had Seeking here beforehand. Well, we'll keep it here for now. Anyway, so I was thinking about fires. So Charmeleon, Ponyta, and Megby. Oh yeah, in the rock type section, I completely forgot about Shuckle. Oh yeah, Larvitar's not viable. I completely forgot about Shuckle. I actually think Shuckle would be an okay Pokemon. It would be... It's basically... It's Stealth Rock weak, which is pretty bad, but it has Encore. Encore is pretty good. It would... I think it would be in the C minus area. It would have a niche. I honestly think that Shuckle has a small niche even in the current meta. It's just not really it's not really recognized though. Sorry, my brain turned off for a second. Alright, where were we? Okay, fire types. Yeah. Would the flyers have a niche? Charmeleon can only really perform as a setup sweeper. That's the only thing that does unique from Quilava, and frankly, this thing ain't sweeping on shit in this meta. Charmeleon's bad. Megby, I actually see something for, because Megby has much better coverage than Quilava does, and not only that, but it has a slightly better speed tier, which would be important for a whopping 0 matchups. That's actually really fucking rough. Would the coverage make up for it, though? I feel like it could. Yeah, it has better attack, only a little bit worse special attack, so the coverage could be worth it. Oh, its special coverage is actually not as good as I thought it was. Special coverage is actually pretty bad. It has a better attack stat for mix attacking, though. So, like, it can cross-chop Bastiodon, I guess. Oh, and I'll be generous, it'll have a small niche. Ponyta can only click fire moves though, and double edge. It just kind of it has hidden power grass for the rock types at least, and that will hit the rock types really hard. But the thing is that this thing thuds into waters, and the waters just absolutely cannot handle. Waters just absolutely destroy Ponyta. So Ponyta wouldn't have a niche in my opinion. I just feel like putting more things into the mount here, just for the sake of it. Any Pokemon that has a pre-evolution in SU, I just think it should just be put here at this point. I'll focus more on this later. Anyway, so now we've covered the world where Bronzor, Exploud, Flareon, and fucking Sudowoodo are all gone. Now, what would this? Now, how will this affect with Ghastly rising? When Ghastly rises, the meta honestly doesn't really change at all, surprisingly, because Duskull and Ghastly have very different roles. The closest thing I could see to maybe happening is Shuppet would be UR, by the way. Closest thing I could see to happening is Drifloon getting a tiny niche back, but like it'd be small. Because Ghost is a good typing, but Ghost is only a good typing if you're a good Pokemon, and frankly, Drifloon is not great in this meta. It would have a unique role though, which it doesn't really have when Ghastly exists. One ripple effect of Flareon being gone is that grass types get a little better. This doesn't affect Cherrim at all. I feel like this actually does have a pretty impactful effect on Sunflora though, especially since Sunflora can feast on some of these ground types coming up. Like even like Bastiodon, for example. Cherrim can't break Bastiodon. But Sunflora can. I actually think Sunflora gets pretty noticeably better in this meta. Weepinbell's about the same though. Another observation that I think is interesting is that Pikachu feels better because we lost 2 ground types, which means that Pikachu no longer has to worry about running Hidden Power Grass for Marshtomp, so it can just run Hidden Power Ice freely. Would that make Pikachu an A-rank Pokemon? Honestly, I don't quite think so. Especially when Lumineon and Pidgeot, who outspeed it, are going to be some of the best Pokemon. So I think Pikachu's about the same. Anyway, Huntail is gone, which means that Rain as a playstyle is basically extinct. Is there any Rain Pokemon that could maybe replace Huntail? So 94 or 52 would be the stats that it would be trying to compete with. 70, 60 is not the worst. 85 is just not enough offense. Honestly, the only Pokemon I could see coming even close is Horsey. I guess Horsey would have a tiny niche as a result. It feels weird though. Would you ever want to run a Rain team for Horsey? The answer is no, so I'm just gonna keep it as a no. Alright, gamers, yeah, so the meta really doesn't change at all with Huntail gone. We just lose rain teams, which rain teams are not super common anyway. I run them a decent amount. I think I'm the only one who runs them a decent amount. And then Kecleon is gone, which means that we lose a pretty prominent support Pokemon. And honestly, nothing really replaces Kecleon. What are normal types to get Stealth Rock? Because that would be what it competes with. Oh, Clefairy. Yeah, Clefairy definitely rises in this hypothetical. It just does what Kecleon does. Now, if you want more raw stats, Wigglytuff can do something. I think Wigglytuff actually does get pretty noticeably better in this hypothetical. Yeah, and then I guess the main question then is just how much better does Clefairy get? Clefairy's pretty good into Lumineon. It's pretty ass into the other S minuses though. I mean, Clefairy's a pretty decent blanket special wall. And combine that with how good it is versus slower team styles due to the fact that it has Magic Guard. Like, the only special attacker that it could really put a dent into this is like Sunflora. Yeah, I think Clefairy becomes A minus B plus around that area. It really does just replace Kecleon. And then losing Lopunny. If we lost Lopunny, I kind of already went over that. Pidgeot becomes the best normal. Furret stays about where it was before. But one thing that I think is interesting is that sorry, I'm just so obsessed with the idea of clearing this, filling the Lamau here. I should have done this earlier. I should have done this before I started recording the video. I don't know why I didn't. Anyway, but one thing that very notable thing that happens is that Aipom would have a niche. The only reason why lead Aipom is not a set that exists is because Lopunny is lead Lopunny just destroys it or ruins it. But Aipom would have some form of niche because unlike Furret, it can fake out. Unlike Furret, it can taunt, and that's kind of the only two things that does different from Furret. So like Aipom would be niche, but it would have a niche, which it doesn't really have in current DPP SU. I'm trying to think about other normals that could potentially get a niche. Honestly, Meowth is just completely outclassed by Furret. All these other normal types as well just aren't. Most of the other normals are just not going to have a chance. Baniri doesn't really do a good job replacing. I just use Aipom if you want something like along those lines, right? Yeah, honestly, the meta changes a lot with Lopunny rising, obviously, but the Pokemon who replace it don't really happen, because Lopunny is a surprisingly unique Pokemon in the meta. Oh shit, I didn't even think about it. With a potential X-Cloud rise, Porygon actually has decent potential for some sort of niche. So that's something I didn't even think about. Porygon would replace special X-Cloud sets, which aren't very common, but it would be something. Porygon has Recover, it has all this. It basically, yeah, it'd be better than Cast Form for sure. Download's a pretty interesting ability. Porygon would have a niche. How good would Porygon honestly be? Honestly, not that good. I don't think so anyway. But I have a niche. And Lickitung is just depressing, because, like, even with the Kecleon rise, Lickitung is just worse than Clefairy. Arguably worse than Wigglytuff, too, because Wigglytuff has more offensive options that Lickitung can't replicate. I still think Lickitung's UR in this hypothetical. Oh shit, I just remembered with Swift Swim. No shit. Seeking exists. Seeking would be a part of SU for sure without Huntail. I'm sure someone in the comment section had probably typed that, probably gotten angry at me about that like ages ago, because I just forgot. But yeah, Seeking for sure becomes better. How much better does Seeking get? Honestly, it probably is in the B+ range. Because it replaces Huntail, while also being better against grass types than Huntail is because of Mega Horn. Anyway, we were on normal types, right? I swear we were on normal types. Obviously, Delcatty doesn't have be like mons that replace Lopunny, which there aren't really anything that. Anyway, so then the next things that we'd have to account for are Marshtomp and Wormasand, which I feel like we kind of already accounted for in the fact that we rose 2 of our ground types, Graveler and Pupitar. So, I'm trying to think, like, in terms of ground types, Onix would stay the same. Out of this list, Swinub has no niche for sure. Baltoy resists Meditite stabs, I guess. And the Thunder Punch that Meditite will inevitably start using to hit Slowpoke with. We'll do a quick stat comparison. And Slowpoke has like an actual defensive profile, which Baltoy doesn't. But just to make sure that I'm not excluding anything, I will go to the damage calculator and calc this one out. I'll put the calculator on my tab so that way there's at least something going on screen while I'm doing this. Because like Baltoy would kind of be like a rapid spinning Meditite check, I guess, on balanced teams. Could like, I wouldn't really be able to check Pikachu though, and the reason why is because like, if you're running physically defensive investment, you can't check Pikachu when your stats look like this. Like comparing it to Wormasand. Yeah, Wormasand has like, yeah, an actual HP stat to coincide with its special defense stat. And Wormasand already is 3-hit KO'd by Pikachu's Hidden Power Ice. Baltoy will get 2-hit KO'd for sure. So like Baltoy would be, in my opinion, too specific and just bad. Anyway, I was thinking ground types. Yeah, that was what we were on. Sandshrew seems a little interesting because it has rapid spin, an actually good defense stat. So it could kind of be used to. I mean, it's not a Mighty Anna trick because Mighty Anna just clicks Howl on it. Fucking all the normals hit it too hard. Bird has coverage even. Okay, yeah. Sandshrew's bad. Hey, Cubone can wall break, I guess. The meta seems really fucking harsh toward it, though. There's a lot of waters. Even the physical attackers hit it really fucking hard. Yeah, Cubone's bad. Oh, fuck. In terms of rock types, I just completely didn't realize that, that Lileep is a Pokemon that exists. So, yeah, Lileep is a Pokemon that exists. How good would Lileep be? It's U-turn weak, which is awful. Has reliable recovery, though. It's honestly on the passive side. It's a rock type that low-key beats the other rock types, though, with like Giga Drain. That's something. You know, this isn't even like that bad. It is very, very bad. The normals can just click U-turn on it for super effective damage. But I surprisingly think that Lileep would have a small niche in this meta. A niche that it wouldn't have in the current meta, because Sudowoodo and Bronzor are very good into Lileep, but anyway, so now we have the list. Now we have sort of like the more defined list of about what change. Honestly, surprisingly not a ton changes. I guess now at this point, all I'd really want to do is look at this list of UR Pokemon for Pokemon that would be able to make some sort of splash or impact, which wouldn't be very many of them. So I'll just go through the list of Pokemon that are very obviously frauds before we start entertaining the rest. Alright, so this is my final list of UR Pokemon that I would lightly consider for potentially having a niche. So how about we go over that list? Why the hell not? So Voltorb would actually be decent in the lead metagame, because Voltorb is useless because of Lopunny, right? But without Lopunny, Voltorb becomes a decent taunt lead. It's good against Onix. It can try to static Apom, I guess. Voltorb would have a niche for sure. Shelter and Kabuto would be rapid spin users. Basically just... But like, Wartortle can spin. Honestly, Wartortle for sure rises in this hypothetical because Wartortle is... Yeah, Wartortle is much better against the rocks, against the actual rock setters than Tentacool is, which that's a very, very different aspect of this metagame that would for sure make Wartortle viable. Honestly, the same would go for Staryu in this hypothetical. Honestly, if I have Anorith rated at C+ as an anti-Onix lead, then Voltorb as a Pokemon that can explode, I think I should also have in this C+, B- area. Again, the only reason why Voltorb is completely useless in the current meta is because lead Lopunny makes its existence pointless. Honestly, Elekid's role becomes a lot more important without Lopunny as well, because Elekid has the fastest natural speed in the tier. So Elekid for sure gets better. And honestly, yeah, Shelter is completely outclassed by Wartortle. Kabuto would be Wartortle, but can resist normal. But Wartortle already does a surprisingly okay at taking normal hits. Kabuto's also in the Lamau tier. And then Flaffy is another Pokemon that I'm lightly considering. It's actually a decent Pikachu check. Actually, I've been bringing up Pikachu quite a lot. Low-key, I've been really tempted to increase the spot of Pikachu. I think it actually is worth doing. Pikachu is just a devastating wall breaker in a tier without Lopunny. And in a tier that doesn't have Wormasand or Marshtomp in it either, the options for checking Pikachu just aren't as good. Yeah, so then Dragon types are something that are interesting to think about. And Dragon types don't get any better, honestly, with these changes. And then Bayleaf, would Bayleaf... No, Bayleaf's just completely outclassed by Cherim. Ledion has some maybe purpose as a screen setter, but not really, because Staryu can set screens, Togetic can set screens. Oh yeah, we were talking about Flaffy. Yeah, Flaffy's a heal Belmon that can check Pikachu. And honestly, nothing else, really. I think it's UR. If you want to check Pikachu, there are just better options. Nuzleaf as a boomer on Sun, honestly, is something that should be explored in the current metagame. Unironically, I think this would totally have some sort of niche. Chimchar would be a fake out lead with Stealth Rock. Unfortunately, that role is kinda ass with other fake out leads that outspeed it. It just generally can't really fit everything at once, because it would want fake out, Stealth Rock, protect for to dodge fake out, obviously, and then U-turn for pivoting, and like its speed stats low. It can't really do everything that it wants to do in a single game. I think it's just no. Oh yeah, Riolu's obviously shit, because none of the fighting types rose. Pachirisu, I don't really think changes that much. I guess it could change check Pikachu while also being a pivot, but like, who gives a fuck? Actually, its speed tier improves a lot with Lopunny being gone. Just use Elekid. Skorupi. Honestly, having a better matchup versus ground types compared to Tentacool is something that I think is genuinely interesting to think about in this current meta. I still think it's UR. And then Krogunk, and Lumineon would kind of give it free setup opportunities, and then it can just spam Vacuum Wave. This whole meta is really Vacuum Wave weak, but like something like Tentacool checks it very well. So Viper is an offensive Pokemon that checks it without even trying to. Duskull is pretty good into it. I don't really think Krogunk would be any better, nor would I think Mantai could be, because it's a wall that is Stealth Rock weak, and Stealth Rock weak walls are bad. And before I finish up this, I want to sort of go over the tiers again and just kind of really think harder about this to make sure that the list I've made actually makes sense. I'm gonna check my Discord notice first, though, because why the fuck not? Okay. Anyway, yeah, so in this hypothetical, the S and S- rank mons, in my opinion, are Lumineon, Mightyena, and Pidgeot. And honestly, nothing else is really a contender otherwise. The closest thing I could see to maybe a contender is Octillery, but Octillery is bottlenecked by its speed enough to where I think it kind of caps at A+. Low-key, just because I think it's interesting enough to do, I'm actually gonna make this I just gotta... I'm checking my text real quick to make sure. Okay, yeah, I have time. I don't gotta leave until like an hour. I got my times mixed up, so I can actually spend more time on this theory mon than I had anticipated. Honestly, would my A+ really look like that? I know I'd have artillery on this A+ for sure. Furret, no though. Because Furret still faces enough competition from Pidgeot. No, I think Furret still would be a step above these in a meta without Lopunny. Graveler and Pupitar, though, I just don't think Graveler and Pupitar really are as good as Sudowoodo is. So yeah, this would be a pretty tiny A+, but... I guess that's my list. Yeah, Bastiodon and A- feels fucking strange, even in this hypothetical. But like, the only reason why it feels strange is because like this is a tier without Bronzor though, and Bastiodon would honestly be the closest we'd get to replacing Bronzor. I think Bastiodon. But like, part of what makes Bastiodon good, I think there's enough trade-offs to where Bastiodon would be B+ in this meta. Honestly, looking at this list, Pikachu in A feels fucking just weird. I put it here. I put it back in A-. Why is Abra in A-? Actually, Abra has a much better speed tier now without Lopunny. Doesn't have the greatest speed tier though. Yeah, B+ is fine for Abra. Such a tiny A+ and A- in this hypothetical, because not a lot of things really rise. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Actually, okay, that's a decent amount of SU ranked Pokemon. There's not a lot of, like, new SU mons. Like, Seeking, Wartortle, and Staryu are kind of the only differences compared to my current official SUVR. Compared to my current SUVR. Damn, there's like no B-. Let me rethink this for a second. Honestly, out of all of these, I think that the one that gets risen the biggest is Elekid for sure. Honestly, Voltorb as well. Wigglytuff too. Stunky is low-key nerfed from there being no Ghastly, so I actually think Stunky would go down here. And honestly, for whatever reason, looking at this current meta, I'm kind of feeling like Tentacool A- feels a little bit more logical because the ground type, because there's more ground types. But like at the same time, I'm not really sure. I feel like I can delete this tier at this point. Yeah, honestly, that is genuinely as big as I would be willing to make my B-. It'd be a tiny B-, but I mean, there's been a lot of tiny tiers in this hypothetical. So fuck it, if I'm thinking about ranking Ariados C, then I may as well screw B- in this. If Rapid Spinners get better, then Dustox actually becomes a little better, so I'll have it in C. Honestly, and honest to God, in this hypothetical, I think that Nuzleaf is on par with I unironically think Nuzleaf is on par with fucking Tropius. Tropius is that much of a fraud. Yeah, so, that is my VR with the, under the Theorymon of Pokemon rising from SU to ZU based off of VR tiering. This was a very strange video. I'm sure all of you guys got bored watching it, but I enjoyed making it. So, if you want, I have a Patreon. You can donate if you feel like it. I have 4 different tiers. I also want to thank my Phantom tier patron Squizzy and my Calvadot tier patrons Reggie Mania and Eternum. And boy, howdy, do I gotta take a fucking shit, so I'm gonna do that.